Hello again. What I'd like to show you today is a reactive target for practical shotgun and cowboy action shooting. It consists of the normal knockdown target, 8x8 inch steel plate, but when you hit this one, what it does, it collapses and triggers this lever, which then throws this beer can up into the air for your second shot. Now I should confess straight up that this isn't my idea. The original was designed by a cowboy action shooter in California, goes by the alias of Cliffhanger, and he posted some pictures of his design about 10 years ago on the net, and what I've done is just adapt his original idea using the materials that I have. So in the rest of the video I'll show you how I put mine together and give you a few tips on what to avoid if you make one yourself. But don't forget, I didn't invent this, so if you find that you make yourself one and then you can't hit the damn beer can, then you can curse Cliffhanger and not me. It will of course work with soft drink cans, but the whole point of using beer cans is it's great fun to make sure that you empty all the cans out the night before the shoot. There's quite a lot of metal cutting involved, which you could do perfectly well with a hacksaw, but a metal cutting bandsaw like this makes it a lot easier. You'll need an arc welder. Now this is my one, which is an inverter type. It's also handy to have the other bits and pieces that go with an arc welder, angle grinders and power files and so on. It's not really very smart to keep the welder below the welding bench as I do, because it gets full up with metal filings from the angle grinder. A pillar drill is very useful as you're drilling quite large holes in thick metal. It could be done with a hand drill, but aligning the holes for the spindles would be quite tricky. I have a small lathe which I use for drilling holes for the spindles, making spacers and so on. It's not essential, you can do those jobs with a hand drill or a pillar drill and a file. Okay, let's have a quick look at some of the materials you'll need. Since most of the people who view these videos will be based in the USA, I'll talk in feet and inches rather than metric. You'll need a supply of mild steel 2x1/4, some more mild steel 1 inch by 1/4 or 1 inch by a little bit thicker. You'll need some 3/8 rod for making spindles. You'll need a bit of wood, about 2x1/2 and maybe 15 to 18 inches long. And lastly, you'll need a good selection of nuts and bolts. Right, let's have a look at the three main assemblies that make up this device. When I was talking about materials you'd need, I forgot to mention that you'd also need some 2x2x1/4 angle iron. And the reason I forgot is that I'd already adapted an existing frame that I had lying about. So this frame has actually got a few spare holes in it, which is historic more than anything else. The main features, this is the front, this is the back, this is the frame that holds the spindle for the lever arm, this is the shield that stops the can getting riddled with shot before it actually flies into the air. This is a bar that holds the adjusters for the weight, which you'll see later on when it's all assembled. This is the primary knockdown plate, the one that you shoot at first to trigger the can thrower. It's made by an 8x8 piece of steel, 1/2 inch thick. This particular one I salvaged from an old pistol target that had become too cratered to be safe for pistol shooting anymore. You may be able to see if I tilt it, the cratering on that side. But it's perfectly fine on the front and easily good enough for a shotgun. Finally, we have the lever that throws the can into the air. It's made by 2x1/2 pine with some reinforcing plates made of 2x1/4 mild steel. On the bottom there's a pivot made from a piece of tubing welded onto the bottom. Dimensions aren't really critical, they depend on the size of frame you're made. For those who are interested, I'll post dimensioned photographs later on in the video. Assembly is pretty straightforward, but one thing you need to do is make sure that the centre of mass of your lever arm is a little bit behind the pivot, so that when it's at rest the arm is actually resting on the bottom of the can shield. You may wonder why there are 3 holes in my side plate. The reason for that is because I was experimenting with different heights of pivot to see whether it affected the height of the throw. Actually, I've settled on using the bottom one now. Another important point is make sure that when your arm comes down to trigger the lever, like so, when it reaches the bottom of its travel, it's actually clear of the bottom of this lever. See, there's a little bit of slack there. If you don't do that, when the plate hits the piece of wood here, it will very quickly break it. So make sure you have this little bit of slack there when the thing is triggered. The purpose of these 2 turn screws here is to allow you to adjust the position of the upright arms like here, so that you can compensate for sloping the ground, or somebody who's using very light loads in their shotgun and you need to set this arm so it trips very easily. So just do these up like so, and you push the arm back to the vertical or beyond. I actually tapped out this bar to take the bolts, but if you don't have a die facility or anything else, you can just drill clearance holes and weld a nut onto the back of the bar like that to take the bolts. Well, welcome to England in July. It's 60 degrees and raining as usual. Now, I'm not allowed to fire a shotgun in my backyard, so I'm going to have to try and trigger this thing with an air rifle, so bear with me if you will. Well, there you go. It will also fire the little plastic balls you get in ball pits, so if you can steal some from your grandchildren, they're good fun as well. Let's see if we can shoot one of these. There you go, tricky with a pump gun, but okay with a double.